got some sound. Anyway, yeah, we're good. Hey everybody, my name's Braven. I just wanted to show some CPU usage within Studio One and just some of the stuff happening. Just to give you a bit of an overview here, I've got this recording software going, so you're going to see this clip quite a bit here, and it has nothing to do with the audio. This program I'm using is just spiking the crap out of the CPU and causing this clip within the Studio One DAW. So let's start by going with my CPU. You can see what's running here. Again, usually I'm usually only running at 5 to 12%, but because this program is just sucking up a lot, here's my logical processors, and you can see how some of them are different. This is almost a nice row here. If you let the Windows system manage your CPU, it loads up the first two and sometimes barely ever touches these. And for one, it's bad wear and tear on the CPU. Second, it's not a great thing for audio. If you're doing video gaming or doing stuff like video production, letting the Windows system manage the CPU is a better choice. For audio, however, it's not. You can see I'm running an i7. It's just 240. This 240 is turbo. It usually runs at 2 gig. I've got my turbo blocked. This is a false reading. It usually runs at 2. 4 cores, 8 logical processors. You can kind of see what's going on there. My memory, because of this session, here's the biggest thing. 32% out of what I got, and these memory sticks are actually wrong that are in this computer. So that's the basics on that side. So what I've done here is I opened up a session, I dragged one of these tracks I've produced in here, and you can follow the numbers here on the side. I created 60 tracks. Same thing playing. And I put about 16 plugins on each track, all Presonus plugins. Let's just bring this up. And you can see all 60 tracks here. And all the plugins is the same all the way through with just regular presets on them. And then my voice channel. Okay, I've got 16 plugins on each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And I'm just using the Presonus stuff. People are complaining, saying, oh, Presonus this, Presonus that, and it's causing havoc. It's not. Most computers are not intended for audio. They're intended for home use and business use and typical stuff. This whole world of digital is brand new, and computers was not built to do this. So if you want to turn your audio station into an audio computer, you need to hack it. You need to set settings. You need to dedicate it as an audio production or a video production software or a system. The Presonus and people that create plugins and do all this sorts of stuff, their hands are tied. They're basically making something that works with all computers, and they have no control of how you or computers software is built, OS systems. And most people are always talking about CPU and it's causing spikes and this and that. The CPU is never an issue of audio processing. What is an issue is what you feed to the CPU. I mean, the faster you get, the better it's going to be, and it can handle more stuff. But CPU writes in a linear fashion, and it can only handle what you're giving as far as RAM goes. And there's a whole math to this whole thing. And I build computers. I'm not saying this to blowing smoke up people's bum. I know what I'm talking about. This is all processors working, and what you feed the CPU, it makes a big difference on your settings, your display settings, your paging file, things running in the background. You hear my voice clip out quite a bit with this stupid recording software, but anyway. And you have to set it up for production. You can't, have your cake and eat it too, or you're, using your computer for a whole bunch of stuff and expect it to perform the best in audio production. It's a combination of settings between the DAW, between plugins, between your computer, and first you have to understand how computers work and how audio processing work, and then you have to read between the lines and go and figure out what the best settings are for the equipment you have. There's no band-aid for it, and people are looking for band-aids. They're looking, oh, if I go and update my CPU, it's going to handle it. If I go and update my RAM, I'm going to be perfect. It does not work that way. There's actually specific CPU made for audio, and they're expensive as crap, but there are actually CPUs made for this. And memory sticks, the round trip of memory, the latency of the memory is what you're looking at. You know, people go buy memory sticks for gaming, and it's not, you know, it says it's fast, so they go ahead and they buy it. There's actually a number system to that, and the lower the number, especially the first three numbers, if you can find a 666, I mean, that's the round trip of how fast it goes into CPU, comes back into RAM, and prints to disk. And, you know, it's the round trip latency that's the effective part of memory. It's not how fast it can read or how fast it can write. It's the round trip latency. Same thing with CPU. The audio CPU that you can find has a faster round trip latency. It has nothing to do with the speed. It has everything to do with settings and what you feed it. So what I did was I pulled up a track here, and you know, I've got all the stuff, went through the plugins, and let's just turn all these on so you can see what we're going. I left out the analog stuff from Presonus, like the console shaper and all that kind of stuff. They're obviously take up a little bit more resources, and anything that's analog-wise will take resources. This Pro EQ thing, they did a fabulous job of programming the sucker. I could put 100 of these things on all these tracks, and it wouldn't even touch this. Some of these are more, some of these are less. It's kind of all over the place. And I basically just grabbed what I could from Presonus and just stuck it in there. And so let's just go highlight all these and go in here, blah blah, and let's turn them all on. Bling. Okay, so this is usually running about 70%. And again, without this recording software, I can actually run about 78 tracks with about 20 plugins, but this software just is causing some issues. I had to backtrack a bit. And usually I can have buses and all kinds of stuff. So again, we got 16 plugins on each track. They're all on, they're all working. And if we go to the performance monitor on this side, you can see what's happening here in usage. Now this is sort of a bit of a mashup here. Some of this stuff shows a little bit here, and as I go down, you'll see they're all 0, and that's false pretense because it's actually using something up here. And if you go on this side, the latency is actually accurate, and now I have like expander that has a 2 millisecond delay, and it comes up every so often to and the compression I think does the same thing. But for the most part, it's all pretty much 0 latency going on there. And so 83% here, 82% here. This should actually be higher, that should be lower. So something is just kind of doing a little extra, I'm not sure what. And you're going to hear clipping again, it's not the audio or the processing, it's just my recording software causing that. So now I've got all the plugins on, and you can see all the CPUs firing up. And you know, they're all different. It's not like, oh, one uses more. What it'll do is it'll read and write from memory into disk, into CPU, and back to disk as these are available, and it'll load up certain areas of your DAW or of your computer running like graphics, whatever, into one of these and kind of maintain it as the keepsake of that process. Again, I'm into the turbo zone, but I'm not. I've got this blocked off, and this kind of false reading. Okay, so now we know what's going on here. Let's turn these all off. This is just a track I did. I'll give you a quick sample of what it sounds like, because once I plug all this in, the track's going to sound like crap. Get to where a bit of cello is happening. Gives you an idea what it sounds like. Okay, so let's go and turn all these on. And we're back on. It's, I don't know why that's a little bit higher. It should be coming down, but something funky going on. And again, this is all going there. So let's go back to the beginning here. Now I'm going to play this track, and again, you're going to see it and hear it clip. But again, that's just because of the recording software. This never happens when I'm producing or doing any type of audio production. So here we go. Let's play this out. And as you can see, like from where I was at 82 to 85, the transition is fairly smooth within this section, besides the spike from my recording software. And again, the CPUs are all, every processor is firing up. So it gives you a bit of an idea. And again, this never really runs this high without this recording software kind of being on. And I could usually do about 78 given tracks with the same amount of plugins kind of on it. And you know, if you think about this logically, I've got 60 tracks with, you know, 16 plugins each, and I could run 150 tracks or 200 tracks with, you know, 3 to 6 plugins each, because you would never actually use all this. And if you do, there's something kind of wrong with what's going on there. And so let me just see if I can save this to show you something else. Oh yeah, so I've changed something so I can save it. So I'm going to save this, and you're going to see it clip almost instantly once it's finished its process. Let's try this out. There's the clip. So every time the computer does something in the background, aside from this audio production, like you got mail checking things, you got your Wi-Fi on, there's other programs connecting to check and updates, and all this process running. You're really not a dedicated audio production computer. You're trying to have two worlds in one, and it just doesn't work that way. Things need to be turned off. Your paging file needs to be turned off. Other processes need to be turned off. If you're going to take audio production seriously, you just got to turn it into an audio production computer, or learn how to set settings where you can turn everything off while you're working on something and turn it back on when you're not working on audio. So every time you do something, move a mouse, save something, click on different windows, it'll create this spike. And this only happens when you're actually pushing to the level. So, you know, people want to use their max 100%, and you shouldn't. You should only be using about 50%, and that spike probably wouldn't even happen at all. In my case, I can use actually 80% of my CPU and never hit this. So this is just to show that, you know, Presonus and what they've done is actually pretty good. Like, their plugins and their built-in stuff is not an issue. You can see how my meters are not showing graphics, and some stuff is not happening here. The biggest issue with Windows computer is the Intel 4000 chip card, the graphics card. It causes all kinds of havoc, and they haven't updated the driver forever, and I wish somebody would do or make a new driver. And if Presonus, you're watching this, maybe you can find a hack to, or lessen the video graphics, or somehow, I don't know, the way it's processed, so it can work with that card. And it's in just about every computer, so it's a bit of a pain in the bum. And the other thing with Microsoft, it has under processes, this thing comes up whenever it feels like it, and almost like 6-7 times a day, checking to see your Microsoft licenses and that all your programs are licensed, and it's a pain in the bum. And when this thing comes up, it actually completely wreaks havoc on your CPU during audio production. I haven't found a way to turn it off yet. And if you do, your system starts to act funny or doesn't run properly, and Windows gets all over you and stuff. So I'm on Windows 8. Windows 10 is even worse as far as I know, and Windows 7 seems to be a little bit more stable as far as that goes, but I'm pretty happy with my 8. I've taken off all the Metro stuff, and all the display candy is gone. It's running bare bones. I mean, I have tons of programs and other stuff on here. I don't run any security features. I have no firewall on. I have no Essentials on. Essentials just, again, it's just a wasted program. It takes up resources, quite a bit of it. You know, and I don't run into issues. Having everything going into RAM, I think in the last 8 years I've only had one time where my computer crashed, and I lost what was in memory, and it wasn't even anything I was worried about losing. So, you know, you got to learn how to save all the time, and I turn off the auto-save function because, again, it just creates an interrupt as it's running if you're running something pretty high and you're doing like 120 tracks and that sort of thing. So this was just to show people that all this stuff running, I mean, there's people having issues with like 3 or 4 plugins on a track, let alone putting 17 on them. And I've got tons of stuff. I've got all the waves. I've got, Jesus, I don't even know what I have in here. I've spent a lot of money on this stuff, and some of these are pretty resource heavy. And they're just deadly on the resources. I can mix and match like half of this with some of the heavier resources and still come out pretty clean with what's going on here. So I thought I'd share this little tidbit just to show people, you know, my computer ain't a maxed out computer. It's just an average computer, but settings. It's all about settings between your computer, your DAW, and understanding how both separate systems work. And what you need to do is find out what you have and find out what the settings are required, or play with settings to find the man in the middle and see, you know, and make them communicate. And that's pretty much. But see how this is smooth up here in the CPU? Like it's doing its thing. But most computers are doing this all the time. They're running heavy. And when you take turbo off, like that setting in your battery parameters, like I've posted in those blogs there on Presonus. You know, setting it to 99% on battery and on AC turns off the turbo and lets this run smooth. This extra little bit of turbo is not going to give you better processing or faster processing. All it's going to do is turn on your fan into high mode, and if you've got a laptop, you know, trying to mix with this fan in high mode is not the greatest thing when it's kind of in your face. And it just runs your computer hot because it just forces it to kind of push over the top. Essentially, it's like overclocking. And it causes spike because when it needs power, you know, when something happens, like if I turn off everything here, this will drop. Let's just let it show a bit of something going on. See, these are all nice writes happening here. Nice, well, in case of audio, nice waveform, you might say. And if I turn them all on, there's no spike there. And sometimes with turbo, like on, this actually goes and nails the actual CPU up in here, and it goes spike, and that really causes an issue. So knocking off the turbo keeps it smooth. This extra little bit of overclocking is not going to give you better performance. It's actually going to worsen your audio production. So anybody with overclocking or pushing the turbo, there's no sense in that. And again, there's Macs out there with 1.8 gigahertz that process, you know, no issue. So, and they do video production, which is actually pretty impressive, because I actually have problems with that, and my video card is nothing special on here. So I thought I'd just kind of go through this a little quick and show you the running processes and all these plugins in the Presonus, you know, bank of things, and there's really not an issue. And again, the clipping is only happening because of this recording software, and it's taken out. Like if I shut all these off, goes down to 28%. I'm usually running at 10 to 12%, so this thing is actually taking quite a bit of stuff to run, and I'm using something called OBS or something. Anyways, hope that kind of explained a few things. You know, if you guys want to get into serious audio production, the first thing you need to do is understand how computers work, how audio is processed, and find the best settings for the computer you have. And that means turning paging files off, forcing things to run into memory, turning on all your cores. There's hacks to do with registry. I turned Live Essentials off because it's a complete problem. It doesn't work worth a damn anyway. And my Windows updates off. I don't do any updates. I don't do any of that stuff. And when I go into an audio production session, my Wi-Fi airplane mode goes on, and I start turning things off. And in my Task Manager startup, you know, I don't have many things that start when the computer starts. I turn everything off. I disable all stuff except for what I actually need. it's really, really, really about settings. It's not the software, it's not the program, it's not Presonus, it's not the plugins. Their hands are tied. They're programming stuff for the masses, and the mass computer that's made is not intended for audio. It's that simple. You have to make it so that it's intended for audio or video or whatever you want to use your computer for. If it's just general use, you've bought yourself a winner. Any computer will do. But if you're doing audio production, you need to dedicate some settings and some time to understand how these settings affect your audio production. There's some things Presonus probably could do to minimize some of this within their software writing. But that's a whole other story. I'm not going to get into that. And that, oops, clicked off of there, and audio went. And that's pretty much it. So, I hope that helped people understand what to look for and what your system could probably do. You just don't even know it. But it's about settings. It's all about settings, people. And I hope that helps anybody out for audio production. Have a nice day and enjoy your mixes and masters and all that.